It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump. Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible.
Listen to me, I'm older than I'm wise.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Taking you home on a Thursday. It is the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump along with Adam Lundy, and we've got you connected on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line at 260-447-8500. Coming up this hour, we're going to be talking to Morgan Olson from the Tin Caps front office staff about some of the promotions going on tomorrow morning with Tin Caps baseball and a chance for you to get some VIP tickets. Also, Eric Dutkiewicz from Parkview Sports Medicine joins us in his regular time slot at 5:35. Once again, the Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. Purdue, IU coming up this weekend. And for Purdue, they are backing into this one with 3 straight losses. And, of course, IU playing for a lame duck coach. I'm not sure what to think about this matchup right now. I'm not sure who I give the edge to, given the circumstances. I don't know if IU is motivated by the fact that Mike Woodson is leaving, the fact that most of them will probably be leaving. They might be auditioning for their next program. I have no idea what to expect. For Purdue, I think they looked like a tired team, but they've got plenty of rest, or chance to get plenty of rest this week before they take on Indiana down in Bloomington. So I don't know. Will 3 losses become 4 losses for the Boilermakers? Is it time to panic? Are you already having panic attacks, or are you waiting to see if they lose to IU? What level is your panic meter?
Yeah, let us know, 260-447-8500. How much of a motivator is still trying to make the men's tournament in March? I know that Indiana has a long shot to get there, but if they were to win out the rest of their regular season schedule, maybe win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament, they could see themselves on the bubble. Is that motivation? I don't know about that either. Yeah, the question is, are they motivated to do something with this team before they end up departing or before their coach departs? Mm-hmm. And I don't know what kind of motivation. I guess we'll find out a little bit on Sunday to see how they perform in front of the home fans. But especially in a rivalry game on national television, this one is going to be picked up by CBS on Sunday afternoon at 1:30. Yep. Of course, we've got coverage, multiple ways to listen. If you want to listen to the IU broadcast with Don Fisher, minus Mike Woodson pregame and postgame, you can catch that on our sister station, WOWO 92.3 FM. And, of course, Rob Blackman and the Purdue Radio Network right here at 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. So, here, I guess when I look at this game, I guess the big question for me is what it takes for IU. First of all, they must win this game. Right. I mean, when I look at their schedule and what they have ahead of them, they've got Penn State, very winnable game, but I don't know that it earns you a bunch of style points. They've got Washington and Oregon. They are on the road, and I know Oregon would be a quad 1 win. I'm not sure, is Washington going to qualify for quad 1? And then you've got Ohio State coming into Bloomington. The fact that Indiana's at home, I think it still qualifies Ohio State as a quad 1. But again, it's like, what is it, top 35 if you're playing them at home, but the top 75 or something like that, or 125. It's a crazy number if you play them at home versus on the road. Definitely. But that's the schedule. And so
they could very easily win out. I think Oregon would be the toughest game, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But they could definitely beat Washington at Washington. They could beat Ohio State and Penn State, both at home in Bloomington. And so I think the big game for Indiana is going to be, can they get the win over a Purdue team that's kind of backing in to Bloomington?
Yeah, it's kind of a win and then go from there kind of situation in regards to Indiana.
You've got a chance to perhaps, again, if it's motivated Indiana, you could reel off 5 straight wins going into the Big Ten tournament. You get another couple of wins out of the Big Ten tournament, and I think you're probably going to be leapfrogging teams that right now are on the bubble, because a lot of those teams that are first 4 out, they're not going to win 7 straight to end the season.
No, they're not.
And so you got to think Indiana would have a chance to slip past them. Now, that's according to bracketologists, not according to the committee. We don't know how the committee will feel about Indiana. And will they hold it against the Hoosiers, the fact that they have a lame duck coach? In other words, it's like if you're on the bubble and you've got 2 teams you're looking at, does the team who's got a lame duck coach automatically get dinged a spot because of that?
Yeah, or are they inspired to put him in because it's his last season? It's a send-off.
Let's give him a run at it. It's the last go-round.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question. Let's go to the other side of the NCAA tournament. Who would you have right now as your 4 teams to make the Final Four? If the season were to end today, and coming up later tonight, we were to get the selection committee and the bracket, if it was today, who's your 4 teams that you would pick on your bracket to be the Final Four teams? I'll give you mine as of today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because they can easily change even as quickly as tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've got Auburn, Duke, Houston, and St. John's.
Yeah, I like that. St. John's is a good one. I like that.
Veteran coach, been through the tournament rigors. I think they've got enough talent. Again, you've got to evaluate the guard play, the ball handling. Houston, a lockdown defensive team. Auburn, so many offensive weapons. St. John's can play pretty good defense, but they've got a lot of offense there with Rick Pitino. I don't have a Big Ten team making it. And I like Michigan, and I like them to win the Big Ten. But I don't think Michigan's got enough to get to a Final Four. What do you have? Let us know on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. Who's your 4 that you would have? Because I don't know how you fill out a bracket. I usually grab the bracket knowing who I think will be the team that survives each of the different regions. And immediately I go to my Final Four, and I kind of pick my Final Four first.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely go through every matchup in the 64 because I do try to like to find those upsets. I don't focus so much on the Final Four as much right away.
But the Final Four is where the points are at.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I go for where I think the points are, because I want to make sure that I stick to my guns and think if these are the 4 best teams, I put them into the Final Four. I can't have them being a part of an upset that, I see one of those, those matchups that would be like the fancy upset.
Sure.
I don't want to include one of the teams that I think is going to be in the Final Four, because then I'm kind of stuck as I get to the Final Four. So I usually pick my Final Four first. Then I go back and start picking the first round. But I already have written in the teams through each region. I've already got those teams written in to get to the Final Four, and then I just pick all the other games around it.
Yeah, somebody texted in, Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. They said Auburn, Florida, Houston, and Duke.
They've got 3 of my 4.
Yep.
Florida.
Currently a 1 seed.
I debated. Yeah, they'd be a 1 seed, but you almost never see all 4 1 seeds.
Right.
So you've got to find somebody who's not a 1 seed but's playing well enough to make a run. And that's why I took St. John's. Florida, are they good enough defensively?
Also, right now, they'd be in the West bracket where they'd have the 2 seed in that one being Texas A&M. I think that's a very strong team that could come out of that part, too.
I don't think.
No? You're not high on Texas A&M?
No. I'm not as high on Texas A&M. Of course, we all know that Buzz is down there coaching Texas A&M, right?
Yep.
That's where Buzz Williams is at.
I do believe.
And there's some people who would like to see him in a different shade of crimson next year.
Yeah, they definitely would. Another text that came in, somebody said UConn, Alabama, Houston, and Duke. Liam McNeely versus Cooper Flagg in the championship game.
Wow. A lot of faith in a coach who, in John Shire, that has done a nice job during the regular season, but has he gotten it done in the postseason? UConn, they've been struggling. I mean,
they have. They've been up and down.
Believing they can just all of a sudden flip the switch now. And of course, maybe he's talking women's basketball, because I'm starting to think UConn might be one of the Final Four teams in women's basketball. The way they've come together, they've gotten healthy. They're playing much better than they did earlier this season.
UConn being good at women's basketball, call me shocked and surprised. But it's interesting.
I'm out on a limb picking them to make the final.
Oh, that's a reach.
Of course, the men, it's kind of the same thing. How much of a stretch is it when they are back-to-back national champions?
Yeah, here's the interesting thing right now. UConn in the men's side, they're projected to be an 8th seed. And currently in bracketology, they'd be going up against a 9-seeded Ohio State Buckeyes.
Well, but the 8 seed is tough because you've got, number one, you've got a matchup against a team that is seeded almost in their same position. So it's not like you're going to go in as an overwhelming favorite. And then your second game is going to be against a 1 seed.
Yeah, that is tough.
So it's hard to get through the first weekend.
Yeah, here's another text that just came in. This one's kind of about a comparison between IU and Kansas. It says, Brett, good afternoon. Pat Miller here.
Hey, Pat.
Hey, Pat, good question for you. How would you put up the IU team basically fumbling and failing for most of the season up against Self and the Kansas team? The Kansas debacle is more surprising to me than anything else, but I don't think it will lead to anybody saying, well, Self needs to go.
It's interesting because when you look at Self, I mean, clearly, and here's an interesting thought. And I heard this, and I'm trying to remember now, just off the top of my head, who I heard say it. But here's an interesting thought, that Bill Self had great years when all of the money was being passed under the table. Now that the money's on top of the table, he's not the same coach.
Interesting. And, just they have not gotten.
I will say this, Pat, if Indiana matches up against Kansas, that it would be very intriguing because I think the two match up very well, where Kansas can play two bigs, one a more traditional post player in Hunter Dickinson, and I think he would match up against Umar Ballo, and then you'd have Malik Renew against Flory, and that would be an intriguing matchup. I think Indiana might be forced by Kansas to play their two bigs at one time, and offensively, I don't know if they're as good a basketball team when they have both bigs on the floor, but they might have to do it to be able to match up. I don't know if Mackenzie Mbako can handle Flory on the glass. And I think the guard play, I would maybe give a slight advantage to Kansas. But right now, the way those two teams are playing, it's wait and see what they do with their last 6 or 7 games here.
Yeah, definitely. Kansas has dropped in bracketology. They're now down to a projected 5 seed. In the first round, they'd be going up against McNeese.
Okay, it's my turn?
I believe so. It is your show.
Yeah, it is I guess I can't just sit and let you go ahead.
Yeah, because I can go on about this whole bracketology for the rest of the show if you want.
Top 4. Who do you have as your Final 4 today in college basketball? I've got Auburn, Duke, Houston, and St. John's. Houston, just because I think they can defend with anybody.
Sure, yeah.
And regardless of what you think of the whole situation with IU, Kelvin Sampson's done a terrific job at Houston.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm definitely taking Duke and Auburn for the Final 4 because those are the 1 seeds that I do think will make it out of their parts of the bracket. As far as Houston,
what do they have Houston as right now as a seed? Are they a 2?
2. They'd be going up against, number 15th ranked Cleveland State, should they make the Horizon League Tournament championship.
Might have a Horizon League team having to go against one of my Final 4. Guess I'd have to change that if it was the Mastodons, wouldn't I?
Yeah, definitely. So, interesting stuff.
I don't know who to pull for.
My bracket or the team I call games for?
Or the team I call games for. I don't know who I'm rooting for now. No, that would not be a debate.
No.
John Conchar in Indianapolis as the Memphis Grizzlies play the Pacers tonight at Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
Yeah, hopefully.
Apparently the Mad Ants in action down at Gainbridge as a opener to the Pacers game tonight. So John Nolan's down there calling that game. He's going to have an opportunity probably to say, hey, to Jitty.
Hey, what's up, Jitty? How you doing?
But that game tonight, we've got that broadcast.
Oh, yeah, you better believe it. Tip off.
Pacers and Memphis coming up tonight from Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and we will have the tip at 7 o'clock.
You better believe it. Should be a fun one.
All right, what else do we have?
Oh, my goodness.
I guess we better take a break, huh?
Well, it says here, who else might be tired at this time of the year on the planner? I'm going to throw myself into the ring.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking me too.
Let's take a break.
Kind of worn down here on a Thursday. We've got 4 down, 1 to go with this work week. And coming up next, Morgan Olson from the Tin Caps front office as they kind of gear up for their holiday season. It's like retail at Christmas time. It's just about here for the Tin Caps. And coming up tomorrow, you can be part of it because they got a special breakfast plan, and we'll get all the details from Morgan Olson. Coming up next, it's the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Coming up in a few minutes, Eric Dutkiewicz to talk high school basketball, of course, girls semi-state, where we will be in Huntington for Class 3A basketball. It'll be Norwell versus Delta, followed by Columbia City against Highland. And we've got coverage of both games, play-by-play, live from Huntington North High School with the Parkview Sports Medicine High School Basketball Games of the Week. Now, there's no high school basketball play-by-play tomorrow night, but we still will have the Parkview Sports Medicine post-game show live from Pizza Hut. We'll be camped out at the Canterbury Pizza Hut right after the Mastodons play Oakland at the Gate Center at about 9:15 to 10:30. We'll give you scores, highlights, and look forward to the semi-state coming up tomorrow night. That'll be at the Canterbury Pizza Hut right here on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. You know, we were talking about who else might be tired at this time of year because we've talked about tired basketball teams. And I'll tell you who might be tired is the officials. I was looking up, and this is just amazing to me. I was looking up some of the referee schedules on what games they do, and just looking at like the last 2 weeks. And I took 3 of the top 5 officials right now, according to Ken Palm, in NCAA Division I basketball. And Terry Oglesby is one that I pulled. You may have heard his name. He does a lot of Big Ten games. He also does a lot of the Big 12. And even dips down into the SEC. He's one of the top tournament officials. But Terry Oglesby, listen to this schedule. Going back to Saturday, February 8th, he did a afternoon game in Auburn, Alabama. Now, that's a little bit in the middle of nowhere. But the very next day, he did a early afternoon game in Lincoln, Nebraska, followed by a Tuesday game in Austin, Texas, a Wednesday game in Columbia, Missouri, a Thursday game in New Mexico, followed by a Saturday game in Mississippi, and that was a Saturday night game in Oxford, Mississippi, and he had a early Sunday game in Evanston, Illinois. Followed that up with a Tuesday in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and then last night he was in New Orleans, Louisiana. So that's one of the shorter trips he's had. But Paul Sells, also one of the bigger officials. His schedule, even more ridiculous, went from a Tuesday, January 28th, he was at East Lansing, Michigan, did Michigan State, Minnesota. The very next night, he did Boise State, Nevada. So he went from East Lansing, Michigan to Boise, Idaho. The next night he was in Los Angeles to do UCLA, Oregon. And the next night he was in West Lafayette, Indiana doing Purdue versus IU. The next afternoon, after being in West Lafayette, he was in Piscataway, New Jersey for Michigan Rutgers. Then the following week, he was in Evanston, Illinois, followed the next day by a game in Orlando, Florida. He had a game in Chapel Hill and College Park. Then he went to Ann Arbor, Villanova, Champaign for the Fighting Illini, and then Evanston to Tempe, and Tempe, Arizona to Seattle, Washington. And then another one, Doug Sermons, who right now is the number 1 official February 9th, he was at Stillwater, Oklahoma. On the next day, he was doing a game in Houston. The following day in Orlando, Florida. The following day, he went to Piscataway, New Jersey. Then went back to Ruston, Louisiana. And then the next night from Ruston, Louisiana, was in Bloomington. He did a game after Bloomington, the next day in Champaign, the following day in Columbus, Ohio, and the following day in Waco, Texas. A short trip from Waco to Fort Worth before the following day he was in Morgantown, West Virginia. All over the place. I mean, it's not like they're just working, and that's why a lot of people are still confused thinking these are Big Ten officials. They go Big Ten to Big Ten to Big Ten. No, they don't. They actually travel the entire country and sometimes coast to coast within 24 hours. You know, the Mastodons had an official, and he just worked the Purdue-Michigan State game the other night, Earl Walton. He had a schedule switch at some point during the season, and he had already been scheduled to do the Mastodons at Milwaukee. And the afternoon before the Mastodons at Milwaukee, Earl Walton did USC versus Michigan State in Los Angeles. So he had to do an afternoon game in Los Angeles, which actually was an early evening game in Milwaukee, and then somehow get a red-eye flight, a car rental, get into Milwaukee, and have a game at 2 o'clock, Mastodons versus Milwaukee. So if you want to talk about who also faces fatigue, these referee schedules are crazy. Speaking of referees, I've got to tell you a story about Jordan Love, the NCAA Division I basketball official who is from Fort Wayne, played high school basketball with my son. I was watching on ESPN Plus the other night, Ball State Toledo. Might have been one of the most exciting finishes in college basketball this year when Ball State, guy was kind of losing his balance in the lane, threw it up at the basket. It went in at the buzzer. They said it counted, and Ball State came up with the huge upset over the Toledo Rockets. Only one problem. They went to the monitor, and the monitor, you had to slow it down frame by frame. And even then, it was almost impossible to tell. Finally, they zoomed in, and it looked like the ball was still touching the very end of the fingertip, right by the fingernail, as the horn went to 0. And I was talking to the official, and I said, honestly, you might have been talking about 1/1000th of a second. It's like having a photo finish where the photo doesn't even tell you the story. And that's what they faced. And eventually, I think they got it right. They said no basket. Toledo then, after a Ball State dog pile when they were celebrating, ended up being all for naught because they took the win away from Ball State, gave it to Toledo, and it's a huge game with implications in the MAC standings. But tough for officials. I mean, they were, they don't get rests. They don't get subbed for and taken out and get extra couple of minute breaks during the game. They're going the entire night, and many of them are working 5 or 6 nights a week, and with travel in between. It's not easy for the officials as well.
Definitely not. So that's the heartbreak that can come with basketball, man. It hurts, but motivation maybe next time.
Yep. We were not able to get a hold of Morgan Olson, but I can tell you some of the Tin Caps premium ticket packages include some of their promotions this year with PBS Kids appearances by Daniel Tiger and Katarina Kitty Cat and Clifford. Is Clifford the same Clifford that was around when I was a kid?
I would imagine it's the big red dog.
The big red dog, Clifford. Yeah. Great Dane, right? Is he a Great Dane?
I just thought he was a big red dog.
Well, he's a big red Great Dane, I think.
I don't know. I can Google.
I know.
What breed is
being
Clifford?
A Great Dane owner, we'll just take credit for Clifford. But that's coming this summer. Also, Daisy Night appearance by Megan Cavanaugh, who, of course, starred in the movie A League of Their Own. You've got the Paw Patrol Night with Chase, Pro Wrestling Night with Mick Foley, SpongeBob SquarePants appearance by SpongeBob himself.
Oh, man.
And then you also have a chance to meet Bluey. There's Princess Night. There's Seinfeld Night, which is one I'm looking forward to because that still be, I think, my all-time favorite show. The Seinfeld night appearance is by John O'Hurley, who played Peterman. And John O'Hurley, you will have a chance to do a meet and greet. And, in fact, the VIP packages, many of them include things like meet and greets, question and answers, giveaways, all sorts of things. So it's a special day tomorrow because they will be selling the VIP packages. So if you're interested, these are very limited opportunities because a lot of times these VIP, there's only a handful that they allow to purchase the tickets because it's a small room or however it's set up. But if you want to get an exclusive premium ticket package for any of the select games with the guaranteed meet and greets, the question and answers, the giveaways, and more, you'll want to be at Parkview Field tomorrow morning from 8 to 10 a.m. And the earlier, the better, and you'll be able to enjoy breakfast just for coming by and getting your VIP packages. Also, if you just want to go and buy tickets, because, again, you now know the schedule, you know the promotional schedule, and you might have certain dates that you're definitely going to want to be there. It'd be a good time to buy your tickets and enjoy breakfast at the ballpark tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time, and they definitely want to see you out there, want to get the fans started on the season, getting their tickets, getting ready.
And we will take a time out because on the other side, we've got to talk to Eric Dutkiewicz, get us all set for tomorrow night's high school basketball and Saturday's girls semi-state. That comes up next here on the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. Brett Rump with Adam Lundy and our Parkview Sports Medicine text line 260-447-8500. Coming up in half an hour, women's basketball with Purdue Fort Wayne taking on Northern Kentucky. We do not have the broadcast, but that game will take place down in Highland Heights, Kentucky before the Mastodons come home for the final home game of the regular season on Sunday afternoon against the Detroit Mercy Titans. All right, so last night I did get a chance to watch women's basketball in the Horizon League. A big one took place in Cleveland, where Cleveland State was taking on Green Bay. Of course, Green Bay with just one loss on the season. That the head-to-head matchup against the Mastodons. And the Mastodons with just one loss so far in the Horizon League season. That the game that they had last Saturday against Cleveland State. And in Cleveland State, Green Bay won the fourth quarter and won the game. It was a close game, really, up until the fourth quarter, and then Cleveland State kind of controlled the fourth quarter. The game actually was very similar, had a very similar personality to the one we had here, where it was very close. You get a little bit of a run by one side, the other side comes back, and it was like a one-point game going to the fourth quarter, and Green Bay ended up opening up a lead that Cleveland State couldn't overcome, and that was very similar to what Cleveland State did to Fort Wayne when it was here at the Gates Center. But last night, Green Bay wins. So Green Bay still with just one league loss. Mastodons with just one league loss. And, of course, those two teams meet the final game of the regular season a week from Saturday up in Green Bay. All right, let's talk some high school basketball, shall we? We are joined now on the Sports Rush guest line from Parkview Sports Medicine by Eric Dutkiewicz. Doot, how are you on this snowy Thursday?
Good afternoon. Yeah, a little snowy on the drive home this afternoon, but fluffy snow, not real slick. Did see a couple snow plows out, so that's good to see as well, and salting the roads. So hopefully everybody gets home safe tonight. Wherever you're headed, and but yet again snowing here in the Summit City.
Where's your level of panic as a Purdue fan with the Boilermakers dropping 3 straight, dude? Where's the panic meter?
It's not that high this year. I think for me, I've kind of joked that now that Purdue kind of got off the Final Four hump, or over it, I should say. I don't feel like every game is so stressful. And I think that my wife would say the same, at least for me personally. But, it's been a tough stretch for the Boilermakers. They climb up to 7 in the polls and a really good winning streak there, and then 3 straight losses. I'm not sure the last time that's happened, but nevertheless, it's been a tough couple of weeks. But, really good competition. Michigan State, Wisconsin, some ranked teams. But that's the way the Big Ten is, night in and night out. Not completely out of things, but, needs some math and some help from other people. But, still some basketball to be played for the Boilermakers and lots of teams in the Big Ten.
Looking at the boys high school basketball schedule coming up tomorrow night, we do not have a game because the Mastodons are playing on Friday night. That's the way the Horizon League scheduled it to try to accommodate ESPN television, but the Dons are not going to be the one selected for the TV game, so you'll have to listen to me right here at 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. And right after the Mastodons game, we will have our Parkview Sports Medicine postgame show live from Pizza Hut, where we will give you boys basketball scores. Looking at the schedule for tomorrow night, not a lot of bright and shiny ones on the schedule. Maybe one of the more intriguing ones is Heritage at New Haven, and that because of the coaching situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the coaching situation there, and with Kyle Sovine, a former, New Haven Bulldog, now head coach at Heritage. In fact, just announced earlier this week, Kyle among this year's Hall of Fame inductions for New Haven Athletics, so congratulations to him. VJ Beecham, another name that I saw. So pretty cool there, but not the best Friday night for games as far as on paper, but ultimately, still some games to be played in the regular season. A couple conference races outside of Fort Wayne proper that have to be determined, but a lot of teams, too, now that the conference races are over, trying to find any momentum or keep momentum as they march forward towards sectional. But, 2 weeks to go, really, or a week and a half or so in the regular season. But, tomorrow, not the greatest games, but ultimately you've got to play. And a part of it, too, is I know talking, Lures and Carroll playing their game late in the season, for instance, one of those keys of not doing the doubleheader at the time because they don't want that long layoff ahead of the sectionals. So I think that's key, too, is just keeping your guys playing, keeping them loose, keeping them healthy now that a lot of the conference races are wrapped up.
Do we have a boys top 5 this week?
I do, yes.
Oh, well, then let's get to it. Let's find out who you've got this week on your power poll. And, of course, it is a snapshot, not a season-long evaluation. And so who do we have this week at number 5?
Number 5, we go to the Central Noble Cougars. How about this team? 7 straight wins after a 3-9 start. They even lost their first 4 games. They've been out of the mix in the NECC for a while, probably before Christmas. But ultimately, some big wins. They got Lakeland on Friday night. They beat them by 7 to take the Lakers kind of out of that conference mix. A 4-point win on Tuesday at Concord. Second year for head coach Ben Lemon, really starting to get things going. That could be an interesting team come sectional time, as we talked about, finding that momentum late in the season.
Number 4.
Number 4, we have the Woodland Warriors. How about this? Outright ACAC champs by virtue of their win a week ago, last Friday, over Southern Wells to claim their first ACAC crown since 2017. They've also done the tourney sweep. 11-1 in 2025. They lost to Southside by 5, their only mark in this part of the year. So really strong team. Trey Yoder, almost a double-double average. Woodland is going to be a really tough team in the sectionals.
Number 3.
Number 3, the Angola Hornets. This team has been putting it together, sitting at 13-5, 6-1 in the NECC, but 5 straight wins to stay in that title hunt. They beat Belmont by 4 in overtime on Saturday. Earlier, Leo by 2 in overtime, and they got a 6-point win over Concordia before that. So they're playing really strong ball in their first season for Brian Weber's. They got a tough stretch in the next 8 with 4 games in 8 days, but they can still have a shot at the NECC crown with the schedule that that conference has with some conference games to go.
Number 2.
Number 2, the Columbia City Eagles. We had their game as the PSM Game of the Week a week ago when they beat Leo 66-61 to clinch a share of back-to-back NEA champs. Of course, they beat New Haven, but the way the conference does the title race, they give it co-champs regardless of head-to-head. So they're now 12-8, but NEA champions. And Matt Schutz now 100 all-time wins at Columbia City and Jimtown. Really strong showing we've seen by Columbia City of late. They move into number 2.
And give us that number 1 team this week.
Number 1, the Wayne Generals. Back on top of the poll this week. They are the SAC champions outright. They can finish a perfect conference slate tomorrow night against Concordia. Beat Southside by 35 last Friday, and they also edged Homestead by 3 earlier in that week. H.J. Dillard, a 24-12 versus Southside. They've got 3 straight SAC titles. Really strong team. 59 wins in 3 years for this Generals team. Amazing what the turnaround has been for that program.
All right, we've got to talk about the girls basketball semi-state, and that comes up Saturday. I think we'll go by class. In 4A, you've got Warsaw. They'll take on the team that beat the Snyder Panthers. That is McCutcheon, the Mavericks. But what's intriguing here is the possible championship matchup where you could have 2 teams with a combined 52-1 record should Hamilton Southeastern and Warsaw win those early games, and that's the matchup I expect. What do you think?
I think so, too. I think, that 10 a.m. game, I think Hamilton Southeastern rolls easily over Valparaiso, and then Warsaw rolls over McCutcheon. McCutcheon 24-3, but what we saw against Snyder, I think there's a lot more there, not as much firepower there, I guess you could say, from McCutcheon. But Warsaw, they're looking to get their first semi-state in 21 years. Last time when they were state runners-up in 2004, had Miss Basketball Jacqueline Leininger, 26-3 that year. So this has been a really strong season all year for Warsaw. Their lone loss has been to Homestead. Of course, Hamilton Southeastern beat Homestead a week ago in the regional. Hamilton Southeastern undefeated, number 1, probably the team to beat in 4A, but Warsaw is going to have that chance to do it, and I think they can do it with the way they play. Averaging 72 points a game are the Lady Tigers, so I think they have the horses to do it, but it's going to be a tall task. I ultimately do think Hamilton Southeastern gets that win there, but Warsaw can really – it'll be an interesting game if we see that final on Saturday night up down in Frankfurt at the Hot Dog Dome.
Yeah, at least from a physicality standpoint, I think Warsaw can match up pretty well with Hamilton Southeastern, but the Royals are just so talented. I think the Royals end up surviving at Frankfurt. All right, let's look at the 3A where we will be, and I think it's going to be an all-Northeast 8 conference championship game Saturday night.
Yeah, an all NE8 conference championship, a semi-state championship with NE8 teams at an NE8 school at Huntington North and Bob Strait Court. I think Norwell rolls over Muncie Delta. Delta making their first ever semi-state appearance after their first regional. Got on a little bit of a hot streak there at the end of the year, so really good season for them. But Norwell, it's like, here we go again, and we talk about it each week of the every season, really. This time of year for them, they tend to shine. And there's that quiet confidence down in Austin. You talked to Coach Thornton yesterday, and just, it's just steady, stay the course, quiet confidence in a team that gets the job done. Columbia City, another team, finally getting into that 3A bracket has really helped them. And they've gotten back to semi-state for the first time in 25 years when they were state runners-up. And so I think, this is a team that, Columbia City won this game by 7 on December 13th, and has won 3 of 4 over Columbia City. But you cannot sleep on Norwell, especially in postseason team. They were the state runners-up a year ago. I like Columbia City to get this job done at Huntington North on Saturday night, to beat Norwell, to advance to the state finals. But this should be a really great game to decide who wins the North semi-state.
Yeah, that afternoon matchup for Columbia City Highland will be intriguing with Addison Baxter going up against Jordan Steele, the 4th top scorer in the state at 26.2 points per game. All right, we got to get to 2A, and that's at Logansport. And the first game is going to feature a couple of Northeast Indiana squads. I do not know how these two teams match up. Whitco, Eastside, what do you expect?
Yeah, 2 Northeast Indiana schools, 2 PSM schools. So we're at least assured a PSM school making it to the championship game on Saturday night. But, 2 different styles. I think what's intriguing is Eastside jumps off the page at 26-1, best season in school history by far, top 5 team in 2A. Whitco is that team. It's the little engine that is good, that has, and that is. This is their first ever semi-state, first ever regional title, first ever sectional title, 21-4. The difference for Whitco, I think, is key for this, is their scoring ability. They're averaging 61 points a game. Eastside does not see that a lot in the NECC and the conference foes that they play. Whitco, it's a more upstyle offense. 39 points to win a regional title a week ago for Eastside. They're going to have to score more just to keep up with Whitco, and I think in that regard. But I think the defense helps Eastside as well. I do think Eastside does get the win. And you know what? I'll go with them in the second game, in the night game. I think Eastside Lady Blazers will be marching on to state when the night ends. Sheridan and Rensselaer Central, that second game, don't know a lot about those guys either. But the Sheridan 25-1, a very good team. This time of year, it's a lot of good teams playing a lot of good games. There's a lot at stake, and I think we'll see that again tonight and Saturday in the 2A.
I know it's been a big week for Parkview Sports Medicine, and, of course, we had a chance to talk to Josh Van Meter about the announcement of PSM baseball. But what is happening? What do you got to tell us on this Thursday?
Yeah, so, you talked to Josh earlier this week. PSM Baseball Academy, we just announced that this week. Really excited to have some programming with Josh Van Meter, local kid who made it to the major leagues, now retired, coming back to the Fort Wayne area to give back to baseball in our community. So excited about that. And just really cool opportunities coming up. We're starting with some private lessons, so you can go on to psmbaseball.com, and there's a sign-up and more information there as far as, all the different programming that we'll have. But, go on there and learn about our new PSM Baseball Academy and all the cool things that Josh and his staff are going to have for us. And I think it's an exciting time for all of us here to launch that new program at PSM, and we're really excited to work alongside Josh Van Meter. And I know you guys had him on the Sports Rush earlier this week. Don't be afraid to go back and listen to that interview on demand if you need to, just to learn a little bit more about it as well.
Yeah, I can also tell you it's probably going to be part of our Best of edition coming up on Saturday morning as well. We always appreciate you jumping on with us, Doot. Look forward to tomorrow night.
We'll see you tomorrow night.
Yep, that is Eric Dutkiewicz, Parkview Sports Medicine, joining us. This is the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Don't forget, tomorrow morning you can enjoy breakfast and get your single game tickets or your VIP packages to some of the special events coming to Tin Caps Baseball this summer. That happens at Parkview Field from 8 to 10 tomorrow morning. Also, got to say good luck to the Mastodons women's basketball team. Just about set to tip it off down in Highland Heights, Kentucky against Northern Kentucky. Dons need to keep pace with Green Bay, who got the victory last night over Cleveland State. And counting down toward that final game of the regular season when the Dons will go head-to-head with the Green Bay Phoenix up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. That will wrap it up for this Thursday edition. Snowy Thursday night. Be safe if you're out traveling. Big thanks to our guests that appeared on the show. John Kaufman, men's basketball coach, Purdue Fort Wayne. Dons will take on Oakland at the Gates Center coming up tomorrow night. Also, thanks to Eric Dutkiewicz from Parkview Sports Medicine. He'll join us for our Parkview Sports Medicine postgame show live at the Pizza Hut at Canterbury after Mastodons basketball coming up tomorrow night. That does it for us. For Adam Lundy, I am Brett Rump. This has been the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.